A very warm welcome to everyone for attending the Buildtech Asia Roadshow Philippines. My name is Husna and I'll be your host for today. This is the first Philippines Roadshow by the 11th Buildtech Asia, a premier building and construction industry event expecting over 10,000 attendees in Singapore this 15 to 17 of March. Featuring well-known leaders in the construction industry, the Philippines Roadshow will cover the capabilities of digital construction and how to keep up with the game. We are proud to present Digitalising Philippines Construction for Greater Productivity as our theme for the roadshow. This theme was carefully created to reflect Philippines' growing demand for adopting new technology in the built environment. Now, first of all, we would like to welcome all our speakers who have kindly agreed to be part of this roadshow. Now, before we proceed, please post any questions which you may have using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And with that, I'd like to introduce Ms. Shirley Chan, the Business Director for Constella, to deliver the opening remarks. Over to you.
Thank you, Husna. Mabuhay. Kamusta kayo? Dear distinguished guests, partners, a very good afternoon to all of you. COVID-19 has emphasized the importance of technological innovation for the resilience and the survival of the construction industry. With the accelerated global growth of 5G, 3D printing, BIM, big data, IoT, and more, the world is moving towards the era of Industrial 4.0. This created ample opportunities for innovation and the future development of the construction industry, especially in Southeast Asia, like the country, Philippines. We at Constella are pleased to be contributing partners for the industry transformation for the post-COVID-19 future-ready world. As a leading MICE player, the organizer for several prominent exhibitions in Asia, we strongly believe that riding onto the wave of digitalization is one of a very important key drivers to continuously lead in the global economy. Now, we are therefore pleased to be here today to share our international experience and expertise in Buildtech Asia's Philippines Roadshow. To achieve this objective, the roadshow facilitates industry discussion, exchanges, and knowledge sharing. It establishes itself as the go-to platform for technological adoption within the construction industry. Now, in conjunction with this new effort, we are pleased to share that our supporting partners here today bring us an ever impactful gathering for the latest innovation in the world of disruption and resilience. Together with them, we would like to give thanks to our speakers, supporting organizations like CIAP, PCA, SIBL, and all partners that made this roadshow possible. I wish all participants an enriching and fulfilling experience. Thank you. Husna, over to you.
Thanks, Shirley, for setting the tone of the roadshow. Now, before we dive right into today's discussions, let's welcome Mr. Darren Tay to give a short sharing on what to expect at Buildtech Asia 2022. Over to you, Darren.
Thank you, Husna, and welcome everyone for taking time off for today's regional roadshow at Philippines. I would like to share more about the main event of Buildtech Asia, which will be happening this year from 15 to 17 of March in Singapore at the Singapore Expo. Now, this year's editions will be unique as it's the first time that Buildtech Asia will be taking on a hybrid format. Hybrid format in the sense that there will be a physical exhibition and conference on site, while an event portal will host and mirror the event virtually. Now about Buildtech Asia. It is a B2B trade event on building and construction technology with the objective to help organizations to accelerate the adoption of digitalized solutions and smart technologies as part of the industry transformation roadmap. This year's event will be our 11th edition and will bring together regional professionals from the built environment industry to convene and to facilitate the exchange of knowledge and insights to help start, scale, and sustain their transformation journey. Now, as we all know, the global pandemic has greatly impacted the construction industry, especially in the last 2 years, where we saw countries introducing lockdowns and restrictions, which has caused several disruptions that resulted in severe construction delays. Construction companies are facing mounting challenges from acute labor shortages to skyrocketing material costs, resulting in firms turning to technological adoptions to curb some of these short-term problems. The building and construction industry will see a shift towards digitalization and automation. This will address the long-term costs and margins, with safety being one of the major challenges for the industry. Digitalization will be driven by technologies such as AI, 5D BIM, AR, VR, and electrification powered by 5G speed network connectivity. Organizations will also have to adapt a better workforce management strategy. The workforce must be equipped with knowledge and skill to accommodate this urbanization. Buildtech Asia will be the platform to facilitate the transformation for the built environment sector, with 3 full days of curated contents and programs to help companies and the workforce to understand the benefit of new technologies on where to start, how to scale, and how to sustain their transformation efforts, regardless of size, profile, and maturity of the organization. Buildtech Asia is designed to facilitate business growth and fostering of new partnerships. With all this in place, once again, I would like to invite you to the 11th edition of Buildtech Asia in March this year. Do mark down your calendar now. Whether physically or digitally, I look forward to personally receiving you then. Thank you, and back to you, Husna.
Thank you, Darren, for the informative presentation. The ongoing pandemic has caused the Philippines construction sector to fall sharply. But not all hope is lost, as the emergence of Industry 4.0 technologies has given rise to new opportunities to revitalize the industry. Moving on, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Ms. Doris Ugeko, who is currently the Executive Director of Construction Industry Authority of the Philippines, CIAP. Ms. Doris will address the outlook of the construction industry and the opportunities amidst the pandemic. Welcome, Ms. Doris.
Thank you, and good afternoon, our dear friends from the construction industry. I am happy to be part of this conversation as we all move forward in our joint efforts to modernize the construction industry, not just in the matter of crisis management in this time of pandemic, but for the long term, improving the system and processes of the government and the private sector. It was Vladimir Lenin who said, "There are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen." We are facing a lot of challenges, particularly since the onset of the pandemic. But this has also pushed us to innovate and reach greater heights. We Filipinos are truly resilient in that we have seen the challenges brought about by this pandemic not as stumbling blocks, but we have used it as stepping stones toward a brighter and stronger future. There has never been more urgent joint action between the private and the public sectors towards infrastructure development that is supportive and supported by digital transformation and innovation. As we gradually open the economy, thereby expanding our construction works, I am very excited and optimistic to welcome once again the full impact of the contributions of the construction industry to the economy by bettering the lives of the people. The government is determined to not scale back, but to sustain its aggressive build program, as it remains to be the best driver of economic growth. This is because it has the best multiplier effects in terms of employment and shared prosperity, injecting significant development not only to our economy, but also to the lives of every Filipino. The program will boost growth opportunities across the country, expand job generation, improve regional development, increase income, and strengthen the investment climate, leading to inclusive growth for everyone to enjoy what has been envisioned in the Ambisyon Natin 2040. This has set the standard high and has given rise to the golden age of infrastructure. DTI-CIAP, through the Philippine Contractors Accreditation Board, or PICAB, has ensured the public safety by holding up contractors to a standard in building structures of quality. As the country begins to rebuild amidst COVID-19, CIAP and PICAB usher a new era of doing business in the construction industry. In line with the Philippine government's push to make transactions more efficient, PICAB launched an online portal in June 2020 for about 15,000 contractors nationwide, with the foreign and local experts of USAID, together with the hardworking officers and staff of PICAB. We were able to design an operational system for the online license renewal applications. With support from USAID, the online portal has simplified PICAB's service delivery, starting with license renewal. No contractor can do business without a PICAB license. This helps root out shady companies that may endanger the lives and livelihood of Filipinos. The online portal has helped evaluators renew, assess, and issue digital licenses at the height of COVID-19 restrictions. The usual 24 documentary requirements have been trimmed down to only 9. And from 4-week evaluation and approval timeline, now it only takes 4 days. By March 2021, over 8,000 licenses have been renewed. This translates to over 50% of the total registered contractors under PICAB. On the road to full automation, PICAB's portal added 2 new services: the application for new regular contractor licenses and joint venture licenses. This simplified process will encourage more construction firms to acquire their PICAB license and help address the increasing demand of construction projects in the country. The online joint venture license application requires only 3 documents instead of 10 and releases a license in 1 day if approved. The application for a new regular contractor license can now be accomplished in 4 simple steps: accomplishing the online forms, uploading the e-copy of the required documents, scheduling of an interview via email, and paying the new license application fee online. Payments for PICAB licenses have also been made easier and more secure through Land Bank's LinkBiz portal and PayMaya e-wallet. The online verification of accredited contractors has also been made easy and accessible through the PICAB online portal. PICAB has developed a system to automate all its transactions so that we will have a seamless, faster licensing experience for contractors. Together with construction workers, they are the frontliners of nation building, and they deserve nothing but world-class services from the government. This effort to digitize the system in SIAP and PICAB allows us to help and support the construction industry development as it participates in the Build program. In easing business processes, the construction industry will rebound faster and help the nation build back better. The new challenges brought about by COVID-19 has actually pushed us to innovation. Companies working from home, online platforms being utilized in the corporate setting, and even in small businesses, building information modeling or BIM now being realized as something nice to have rather than a luxury. Continuing to survive the effects of COVID-19, McKinsey opined that engineering, construction, and building materials leaders are now focused on reimagining the next normal. The way to be able to accelerate is through digital construction, such as utilization of BIM. Talking about BIM, for some people, it might sound overwhelming, that they may think that this is something new, a game-changing process, wherein it is applicable in the design, going to construction, going to even renovation and demolition, and the operation and maintenance of the project. Using BIM, we can do improvements by understanding the relationship between the site and structure. For example, they had been able to build a shorter bridge in the Empire State Building, shorter than what was originally contemplated by the client, thus reducing significantly the lead time and the cost. This can be very helpful in our government's Build program in terms of savings and transparency. BIM can also be used for sustainability, considering the health and climate crisis, not to mention the massive carbon footprints of buildings. It constitutes about 40 to 70% of gas emissions in urban areas. Construction wastes will shoot up to 2.2 million tons by 2025, and 30% of that is expected to go straight to landfills, which we cannot afford in terms of space and cost. In closing, according to Henry Ford, the only tradition we need bother about in industry is the tradition of good work. All else that is called tradition had better be classed as experiment. We do expect that applying BIM is not something futuristic, but something that we should adapt, such as the countries doing it headway. We may face many other competitive disadvantages, even if the technology and infrastructure we currently rely on have served our operations well in the past. We have to be very zealous in incorporating innovation for us to be able to catch up with the global trend. Our competitive advantage will be determined by how well our industry leaders innovate with the right foundation, with an agile, modernized infrastructure. We are an archipelago and we have so many challenges. So we require efficient and modern transport infrastructure, logistics facilities, and power infrastructure to facilitate and sustain our socio-economic growth, so that we can improve our global competitiveness and promote physical and digital integration. We will now more than ever welcome the use of newer and more digital tools that we build and will continue to build and adapt during this pandemic. All of this will help our economy being more digitalized. This long-term infrastructure master plan will be the #1 priority of the construction industry, public and private. Let us not waver in supporting the industry and the Filipino workforce, especially our construction manpower. The battle cry of the Philippine construction industry roadmap 2020 to 2030, Tatag at Tapat, or Building with Integrity, best encapsulates the industry's goals and aspirations and will ensure that stakeholders all move towards the common objective of addressing the 4 pillars: productivity, sustainability, globalization, and institutions. Rest assured that through the roadmap, both public and private stakeholders will continue to spearhead initiatives for the growth of the construction industry to achieve our vision of being global partners in building nations. Once again, I am happy to see everyone in this Zoom meeting, but we will be happier once I see you face to face, hopefully in the near future. Let me share with you an audiovisual presentation of the Philippine Construction Industry Roadmap 2020 to 2030. Enjoy.
Building with integrity.
Building with integrity.
Tatag at tapat.
Tatag at tapat. Tatag at tapat.
Building with integrity is very important.
When we say we build with integrity, we believe in the quality of our product, the quality of our work. Building with integrity means building with a sense of mission and purpose. All take pride in the work we do.
What you promise to deliver, you deliver.
At kung ano nasa plano, susundin.
Doing it at the right cost, the right quality.
Tatag means strong building, strong values.
We build for the long term.
Strength natin kasi is our workforce.
Integrity to me is doing it right, upright, and with moral principles intact.
Strong in the sense that it was built with confidence.
Strong foundation. And then when you say tapat,
We are really building a sector with excellence and with integrity.
Matapat ka sa employer, matapat ka sa mga tauhan mo, matapat ka sa gobyerno.
Importante sa iyo na magawa yung bagay ng maayos kasi ang makikinabang dun sa ginawa mo, hindi lang ikaw, kundi yung pangkalahatang publiko.
What's best for the project, what's best for the country.
10 years from now,
we will see really a big jump in construction industry growth.
I expect the construction industry to be very busy.
It is driving all into sectors.
It's going to be a very bright future.
Flourishing.
Growth driver of the economy for the next 10 years.
Really skilled workforce.
Everything would be technologically advanced, everything is computerized.
Good quality of work and early completion.
greater value added, greater productivity.
I see a lot of technology being used.
I see the construction industry booming.
A vibrant industry contributing to nation building.
Contributor to our economy in a very large extent.
We hope to see the construction industry as active, as robust now, but with more players. More small contractors getting bigger. More Filipino contractors going abroad.
We have to give dignity back to the laborers and skilled workers and construction workers. Protect their interests, their rights, and their welfare.
Jobs, more than double what historically has been spent. The growth rate, more than double.
Creating more incomes for our people.
Primary ingredient to make this vision happen.
The industry should be up to date.
There should be a total transformation of the industry. Uphold the values of excellence, honesty, and transparency.
We see excellence, we see integrity, we see sustainability and productivity.
I think we are in the right direction.
The construction industry, together with the government, including the academia, should work hand in hand.
We have to go out and let people know.
It has to be a team effort.
Kailangan natin makipagtulungan sa private institution.
Then a lot more can be achieved.
Also need the support of the LGUs in implementing projects.
If we don't do it as a team, we won't get far.
We need to capacitate our existing construction industry workers and hopefully other Filipinos so they will be attracted to the industry. We also need to have strong government policies.
We should get better to serve better.
How do we make that happen?
In terms of connectivity, dapat bilang strengthen.
We need to inculcate building with integrity.
To make good use of analytics. Make more investments on the productivity side of the industry.
That means leapfrogging. Infrastructure is enabling investment.
The best policy is to support the construction industry.
It's high time that the government takes an active role.
We will not focus only on metropolis, but probably on the countryside, so other areas can be developed, like
the roadmap happen. We have crafted the action plans.
The new roadmap is the framework of how or what needs to be done in the construction industry.
If we can follow this roadmap, the future leaders of the country, then maybe the continuity will be there.
Pushing in the same point so that we will move the box forward where we want.
Hindi titigilan yung programa.
So that's the basic point of our focus on why this roadmap is very important.
Filipinos can do it.
If we can come together and prove that this roadmap is something that will benefit the country, then I believe that's one hurdle that we can.
Thank you, Ms. Doris, for the keynote. I am sure that it was an eye-opener for many of us hoping to learn more about the outlook of the Philippines construction industry. Our next speaker is Sir Randy Knudsen, founder and CEO of DynaQuest Technology Services. We are glad to have him to do a keynote presentation on understanding blockchain capabilities in construction industry. Sir Randy, over to you.
Thank you very much. Well, I'd like to cover the topic of blockchain today. I think many of you have heard about blockchain. Some of you may actually already be using blockchain if you have a crypto wallet or been trading in NFTs. But today I'd like to understand why blockchain's so important and how it can be transformational to the construction industry. So for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to try to provide a short introduction and overview of what blockchain is and kind of the basic fundamentals and the keys to understanding why it's so transformative to all industries and not only within construction, and then talk a little bit about the key concepts, and then talk more about some use cases in terms of the construction industry. All right. Next slide. There we go. Again, my name is Randy Knudsen, and I'm the founder and CEO of DynaQuest Technology Services. We're an award-winning company based here in the Philippines, been focusing on new technologies, impact technologies such as blockchain, and how to develop solutions for emerging markets to be more inclusive and more sustainable. I have over 35 years of experience in technology. So let's start with the definition of blockchain. If you take a look at Merriam-Webster, which now has blockchain defined, it's described as a digital database containing information that can be simultaneously used and shared within a large, decentralized public access network. And what that really means is a blockchain is a distributed digital ledger. That's the simplest way to think about it. So when you need to record a transaction and you need to record it out on the internet and write it to the blockchain, that's all the blockchain is. It's just a ledger of a transaction. So that's the simplest form. So if you just want to remember one thing about the definition of what a blockchain is, it's a distributed digital ledger. Now a little bit of history going back. The technology itself has been around for over 10 years, going back to 2008, 2009. And it was first developed to solve the problem with Bitcoin. And the problem was known as a two-spend problem, is how do you prevent a transaction from occurring twice with the same value or the same token. And so through that solution, blockchain was developed as a secure, decentralized mechanism to ensure that those transactions were verified and validated on the blockchain before they were committed or written to the blockchain to do that. And so quite often it gets very confused that when people talk about blockchain, they think it's Bitcoin and vice versa. And it's really the two distinct items. And if you think of blockchain as being like the operating system on your phone, whether it be iOS or Android, and the applications being cryptocurrency or NFT, whatever is on top of that, those are kind of applications. So the key takeaway on this one is just separate that blockchain is not Bitcoin. And then when we talk about blockchain, as we get into a little bit about the concepts of blockchain, you'll start to see how this can generically apply as a solution for many industries, not only the construction industry, and it's already been adopted in industries such as healthcare and such as the financial sector have been the early adopters for it. But once you understand the fundamentals, it'll be much easier to understand how you can apply it. And so certainly the technology has evolved over the last few years, and especially the last 5 years or so, going back to 2018 and starting with the early adopters. One fun fact I always like to throw out is that there's a date, May 22nd, that's known as Bitcoin Pizza Day. And that goes back May 22nd in 2010, when the first transaction exchanging blockchains for pizza. And a Florida man had bought 2 pizzas and he spent 10,000 Bitcoins to do that. And so for those of you that are in the crypto space, it's a mountain of wealth, probably $360 million today. With those 10,000 Bitcoins at the time, it would have been worth $41. It still was probably an expensive pizza at the time, but certainly it's only grown over time. And I think he bought a couple of Papa John's with that. So let's just take a look at why blockchain is so important. It's really the overall approach to the problem in terms of being decentralized and being secure. And it leads to greater efficiencies and exponential improvements in terms of business processes. And that's really the fundamental benefit. And that's why so many industries are looking at blockchain as solutions. Everything from shipping industries to agricultural can all benefit. So if you think about just who can benefit from writing a record that is permanent and stored and secure, that lends itself to many applications across many different industries. So just a quick walkthrough in terms of how a blockchain actually works and what the process it goes through. And it's about a 6-step process. And from the time of step 1, where there's a request made by an individual or by a company or even by a computer, there's a transaction that's being requested to be recorded. And so it goes through to the decentralized network, which is just basically a collection of computers across the globe. And then it takes a look to validate that transaction. If person A is going to be transferring some cryptocurrency to person B, it looks and validates those 2 individuals and what the transaction's going to be. And then once it's been verified through consensus in the distributed model, then a block of data is written. And then that's actually attached to the chain. So hence the name, a blockchain. So it's just pieces of data stored in blocks that are connected together. And the way they're connected together is through cryptography. And so that's the name where the cryptocurrencies come from, because they use the blockchain to actually write and record these transactions. And then it gets attached to the blockchain, and then the transaction's verified. So that's just a high-level summary of how the data is verified and recorded on the blockchain. So again, key benefits of a blockchain in general is really around transparency, security, efficiency, and trust. Because it's recorded on a public blockchain, it can be viewable by both parties and all parties that the transaction did occur. It's secure in that when that data is written to the block, it can't be changed. And so that leads to integrity, built-in inherent integrity and efficiency. Because of the consensus model, there is no central authority that approves that transaction. And so it leads to ways to apply to other processes. And because of the security that's built in, it has trust inherently. So from person A to person B, it builds into trust on both ends. And so it takes out the middleman. And this is where one of the key concepts around blockchain is this decentralized technology. And if you go back to where the beginning of Bitcoin came from, it really was after the 2008 financial collapse. A new currency, digital currency, was proposed and to be developed that would take out a central authority and really create this more autonomous, distributed, decentralized model. And so that's really where the genesis of the blockchain came from. And as it turns out, this really gives a lot of power and capability for a lot of other business transactions to record it based on trust and transparency and security in that model. So the decentralized concept is very important to this model in terms of gaining efficiencies. And another concept that centers around this is called smart contracts. And a smart contract is basically a codified agreement written in computer code rather than on paper. And so that's a real powerful concept, in that you can write these agreements that will be executed by themselves. And so you can set up agreements in terms of real estate transactions, purchasing transactions that will automate the process, and the rules get codified between the two parties. And then when the conditions are met, it automatically execute. And this is a very important concept on the blockchain, and you'll see in some of the examples to follow that it can be used many different ways in the process. And so just a quick illustration: traditional contracts, you have two parties that reach an agreement, they write a contract, and then third parties validate it, and then you can go about executing your agreement. And under a smart contract, it's more streamlined, where the two parties have the agreement. It's codified in a computer program or a smart contract, and then when the conditions of that agreement are met, it's automatically executed. And so we'll talk on some of these examples as we go forward. So based on those key concepts of decentralization and the use of smart contracts, let's take a look at rethinking the construction industry. And the opening comments, I think, were a great opportunity as the pandemic has affected us all, and none less than the construction industry. I think out of the adversity comes an opportunity. And as we look to innovate and recover, I think blockchain can be one of those technologies that can be a key enabler to not only recover, but to prosper in the post-pandemic world. So as we take a look at the industry, this is just a simple illustration, again, using smart contracts in any phase of the construction industry, whether it be from owning and financing, the engineering to the building process, that the smart contract can be used to make it more automated, more efficient, and more secure in handling any of the transactions within this industry. So the examples in terms of anything that would be like legally a legal process, whether it be purchasing property or whether it be the management documents or agreements in finance, can be codified in the smart contracts. In other areas, of course, that you can apply the blockchain, again, anything that needs trust, transparency, and security, areas of building life cycle management, sustainability is another area for compliance, and construction lifecycle management, construction project management. We'll get in a couple of get a use case that is around that as well. And then impact across all aspects of the industry that can really touch on just about anything from changing from the old paper-based routines into more electronic, automated way through the use of contracts. Building-centric management, again, if you need to record data and it needs to be secure and not changeable, you can take the Internet of Things, and they have sensors in buildings, and they can be writing to the blockchain, and you have a secure record of transactions. And what's called zero trust, as I mentioned earlier, because the end parties are automatically trusted in a blockchain, is that it allows for you to eliminate the middleman in the process, and its trust is really end to end to execute, and so allows for greater efficiency in terms of accommodating the transactions across the different segments. Here's a use case that's out there, a company called Civil Digital, and they are focusing in the area of construction project management, and they're looking to use the blockchain to help with the procurement and supply and project management, change management, smart assets and such. And so they're looking to build a solution that focuses in those areas. And here's another example of a company called Sumit that's looking into structured health monitoring. And they use, again, the blockchain to power the data and record through their devices and life cycle and the system complete design. So that's another example of how blockchain potential is being used as well. Another area, science data, is another supplier that's taken a look at environmental compliance of buildings. And so blockchain, again, capabilities of public shared records that are transparent and can be viewable, creates greater transparency in terms of the management of the structures for compliance. And if we take a step back, take a bigger picture, construction efficiency overall of buildings will help streamline the process as well as also taking a look at structured health in compliance. And an area of great opportunity as well is the smart cities. And that's an area that's going to be based on technology, whether it's 5G, whether it's AI. Blockchain is going to be a foundation for those growth. And there's a couple of organizations I have in my resource guide that you may want to look into about the Livable Cities Initiative here in the Philippines, and also Digital Cities in the Philippines, and the Sit Up organization, all focus on city innovation and development going forward with that. So hopefully you have a better understanding of what blockchain's potential can be in the construction industry. As I mentioned in my opening comments, that finance and healthcare, transportation are early adopters that have really taken the lead over the last several years, but I anticipate you're going to see more and more in the upcoming years within the construction industry. But hopefully with that understanding of kind of the fundamentals of why blockchain is important, and the trust, the transparency, and the security it can bring to your business and its transactions, make it a powerful force and a transformative force for change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Randy, for the enlightening presentation. A gentle reminder to the audiences to post any questions which you may have in the Q&A button on your screen, and our speakers will attend to you shortly. Next, I would like to introduce Ms. Vanessa Tang, Director at ACE PLP and the Singapore Institute of Building Limited. With her vast knowledge of digitalizing the built environment, Ms. Vanessa will be moderating our session today, which aims to discuss on the acceleration of technology innovation and Industry 4.0 adoption. Joining her at this panel discussion are Ms. Jean D. Castro, CEO of ESCA, Mr. Sumit Oberoi, Industry Strategy Manager, Autodesk Construction Solutions, Mr. Barry Polino, Executive Director, Philippine Constructors Association, PCA, and as well as Mr. Paul King, Industry Solution Director, Construction of Bentley Systems. Take away, panel.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Today's discussion topic revolves around digitalizing the Philippines construction sector for driving greater productivity. I am the Corporate Development Director at ACE PLP in Singapore, where I work with clients to implement technology solutions and build BIM teams for construction projects. Along the way, it also gives me purpose to help people build their careers in construction. So in Singapore, our government is very focused on driving productivity in the construction sector through digitalization. The construction industry transformation map set out by the Singapore government is meant to pave the way for digitalization to push our sector to become more advanced, more integrated, and to offer good jobs for our people. And this is why I look forward to our conversation today with my fellow counterparts in the Philippines. While we are different countries, our industry faces similar productivity challenges. And I see this panel to be a good exchange of knowledge and resources on how to address them. Advancements in construction technology has always driven the construction industry forward. With technology, we can build stronger, taller, and more energy efficient structures. It has allowed all of us working in the construction sector to benefit from increased productivity, better safety, improved collaboration, and tackle more complex designs together. And just like a rising tide that lifts all boats, everyone involved in these technology advancements gain access to better jobs and opportunities. Now, in the backdrop of COVID-19 and the urgent need to push for economic recovery, how can we make the best out of the opportunities presented to us in this pandemic? This is the topic that we will begin exploring with our 4 panelists this afternoon from the construction and technology sector. So, as the facilitator has mentioned, joining us today is Mr. Barry Polino. Barry is the Executive Director of the Philippines Constructors Association, the Chief Operating Officer of PCA Foundation, the General Manager of PhilConstruct Events, and the Chief of Staff of the Secretariat of the International Federation of Asian and Western Pacific Contractors Association. Barry was also a member of the Roadmap Technical Working Group and is one of the champions who translated the roadmap into detailed action plans that was presented at the 4th Philippine Construction Congress. Our second panelist today is attorney Jean De Castro. Jean is the CEO of ESCA Incorporation, a Filipino-owned full-service engineering consultancy firm that champions the use of technology in engineering design, construction project management, and building information modeling services to local and foreign clients for over 35 years. She's also an experienced litigator, a certified BIM manager at BCA Academy in Singapore, as well as the certified program manager of the Philippines Construction Association. Next up, we have Paul King, the Industry Solutions Director of Construction at Bentley Systems. Paul is an advocate of construction innovation and global best practice for using technology solutions in the built environment. He manages a global Bentley team, advising construction participants about digitization, collaborative working, and technology best practices from where he's based in Sydney. And to round off our panel today, we have Sumit Oberoi, the Industry Strategy Manager with Autodesk Construction Solutions in the APAC region. Sumit is a key contributor in defining and executing strategic priorities for Autodesk Construction Solutions, or ACS for short. The mission of ACS is to help teams to meet the world's rapidly expanding building and infrastructure needs while making construction more predictable, safe, and sustainable. Now, to the audience watching, I invite you to join us actively in conversation by asking questions anytime or sharing your comments in the chat box located at the bottom of your screen. And I'm going to have my eye on that, so we may answer your questions along the way as well. Now, to start us off on this discussion, I'm going to ask our panelists today how the COVID-19 has affected construction projects and jobs in the Philippines. I'm going to invite Barry to answer this question first. Barry.
Yes, devastating, if I want to use that word, no? But nevertheless, in 2020, we were able to provide protocols for our construction sector. At least keep their minds busy on adopting new challenges and new ideas on how to combat COVID. In fact, most of our contractors managed to put up their own barracks, put up their own facilities with all these necessary health paraphernalia, including the tracing or examination of workers. So it's still pandemic as of now. Most of our major contractors, which comprise about 3% of the general contracting sector, is about 3% only. But the MSMEs, which were hardly hit, comprise about 97%. And adoption to this new pandemic is quite crucial on their existence. Again, the Filipinos are resilient. They managed to survive the last 2 years, and adoption of the technology and modernization. They became aware, no? But so sad that these MSMEs cannot so fast, except for the big guys in the construction resources that they need. So, as I've said, it's quite difficult for the MSMEs to survive, and coupled with the legislation that is not well taken care of by the government, the LGUs themselves having difficulty in harmonizing all these protocols for all these participants in the construction sector. That's how it is in the construction business right now.
And Jean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so Barry would use the word devastating. It was truly disruptive for work done, especially at the project sites. And talent and labor, they had to go back to their provinces, so which resulted in some labor shortage as well. Design projects, while we were able to continue working online, working from home with design, a lot of the designs or plans for construction also went back to the drawing board, right? As people questioned, even developers started questioning, what does the future of work look like? What does the future of our buildings look like? And how do we prioritize health in these new building designs? And of course, that added to expenses other than project delay. All these new safety and health protocols, as Barry mentioned, also changed, right, the project cost and delay. And interestingly, not just to point out the sad view of it, but also the impetus now for a lot of Filipino companies to now start either accelerating their digital transformation plan or even the fact of starting one. Of course, it started being able to do all your meetings online. Well, this is not yet, the digitalization we are moving towards. It is a good first step in terms of being able to encourage really using online platforms. And we also saw, we were initially worried that BIM would become a nice to have because of the cost considerations, but it actually helped accelerate the need for BIM.
Thank you, Jean. And, I invite Paul and Sumit. What do you think, is the level of digital adoption in Philippines? And how is that helping companies affected by the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, okay, I guess I'll jump in on that one first. I think that in the Philippines, I'm seeing it's very similar challenges to the rest of the world, really. I think it's hit everybody almost equally. As you said, challenges of people having to go back to their regions, having to be socially distanced on site. And that's created some huge logistical challenges about just how we build things, because building things is a hugely social activity. we work in close proximity. It's a very team-based activity. But the other issue has been with the industry, with many projects being cancelled. So some projects going back to the drawing board, but in many cases, clients either stopping projects or slashing the budgets for those projects. So what that means is you have a pool of contractors who are competing for a much smaller amount of work. So that's depressing prices. So those contractors, when they're winning work, are having to win them at lower margins. So that's putting further pressures on them. So those contractors are suffering with labor shortages, more expensive materials, and changed working practices. At the same time, having to try and deliver at much lower margins. So that's starting to push them to smarter ways of working. And so we're seeing that, again, globally, that's really pushing construction teams, design teams, and clients towards technologies like BIM and digitization generally to try and improve productivity in the industry.
All right. And in this scenario, how do you think that technology providers, like, representatives like from Autodesk and Bentley like yourselves, how can you serve a more critical role for the construction sector?
Sumit, perhaps you want to jump in on that one first?
It's good. It's good to see you again, Paul. It's been a while.
It has, yes.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Vanessa. I guess just picking up on some of the threads that our colleagues were mentioning. Paul, Barry, and Jean, and yourself setting the scene today. I guess really where we're going is how do we support the region to start to think about moving beyond that sort of crisis that we've all experienced. So how are we going to support the businesses around returning to that growth? So we've obviously gone through challenges from a business perspective, because we've had to sort of move through, how do we support the businesses from business continuity and all of those themes around, working in a hybrid workplace where people, have to reduce the amount of people on site and work in the office, work from home or transition to home. Then that piece around that Paul was alluding to, really that cost optimization, because, lower margins, less projects, a few projects getting abandoned. So how do businesses start to optimize those into moving towards a sort of a business resiliency? And from there, that's really where we can start to think about how do we target some of the investments that will ultimately help us and put us to a different position as a business moves forward. So how do we return to growth and get beyond some of the challenge there. So I guess from our perspective, it's really understanding the businesses and understanding the business outcomes that they're trying to achieve. Whether it is helping them win more business, deliver projects more safer, more sustainable, improve the quality. These are some of the things that I guess we would be focusing on, is to ensure that we can help the businesses with those key requirements as they move forward.
Right. And in order to make that happen, I guess you would need to have, a reasonably good level of digital adoption within the country in order to make that happen. Because I guess if you don't have the talent to support, this digital adoption, then it is going to fall flat. Whatever investments that you're going to make, is not going to go very far.
Yeah.
So I would invite Barry and Jean. Could you give some thoughts on what the level of digital adoption is? Is it at the level that Sumit mentioned is primed for investments and for digital adoption to make a change?
Jean, you can start first.
Yeah, so for me, definitely not fast enough. It's the pandemic was a good stimulus to kind of push people to make that happen. We've been advocating them for almost a decade now. And pre-pandemic, we've had, we've been met with a lot of questions, a lot of rejections. There was really not a big, not a lot of people embraced BIM
Yes.
immediately, right? There had to be an external pressure that happened, and whether it's project constraints, whether it's the pandemic, that really now push people start thinking about, as Paul said, how could we do it better? Clients want more for less. So, but the thing is, it's not. It might be a chicken and egg, right? Is it prime for investment? Yes, because we have so many more projects in the pipeline, right? The build project of the government cannot happen without using technology because we just don't have enough time, right? We don't have enough resources. And when it comes to the talent, it was so interesting when we were starting BIM in the Philippines. When we go to different countries and talk to the talent across all, there were actually Filipinos. It was actually Filipinos who were BIM managers all across the globe. And when the government launched a build program, the government was calling on talent to come back, and the other countries were joking and saying that, if we take back all the Filipinos, who's going to do all these infrastructure work globally, right? So that's why I think that we are primed for this investment, and the talent is so ready, it's here, and that there's so many projects both here and abroad that will make use of this Filipino talent. But we do need investment. Why? Because what stopped the initial adoption, right? It's really capital investment. It's investment, whether it's capital, time, or talent, right? And also it has, because the value of BIM really goes through the entire project life cycle. So you have to be able to bring everyone together to be able to maximize the benefit of that. And that BIM is not actually yet mandated in the Philippines. So we're hoping with this roadmap and maybe even more regulation that would really encourage embracing BIM. And I think that's we need to leapfrog, right? Because we've already been left behind by a lot of our regional partners when it comes to adoption of BIM, even just in the past few years. So I think now is a crucial time. Really, I don't think we have a choice given the constraints that the pandemic has introduced to us.
I think just quickly on that, I think it's an interesting point. You mentioned about having enough time and people, talent and resources. Really, in my experience, there's never enough of any of those. So it's never a good start. And it's interesting working with companies and industries who'll say, when we get the budget approved, or when the mandate comes in, or when we've trained up enough people, when there's that critical mass, then we'll start. But what I'm seeing is, and the BIM mandate one is very interesting, because when I see an industry, and I've been fortunate to work with different companies globally, it breaks into two parts. There are those companies that just get on and do it because they know the BIM process, they know the benefits, and for them, it's a cost benefit. It's founded on a business case. It's just like any other business investment. They look at the potential benefit, they look at the costs of investing to get there and make a return on that investment, and they put a business case together. And they don't do everything. They don't go away and digitize their whole business, but they might focus more on 3D modeling and clash detection in design, or they focus on 4D construction out on site to avoid clashes and labor issues and material issues. And they optimize their delivery, but they're not doing everything, but they're doing bits of BIM that work for them. And quite frankly, they look at companies that are waiting for a mandate in amazement and just say, well, why would you wait? The benefits are there. Don't wait for somebody to tell you. But of course, you do need some parts of the industry. They will wait to be told to do it. But of course, the interesting thing is then, what about things like lean construction? So lean construction, for example, as a cost benefit, as a digitization process, can potentially save more on a project than BIM. But again, those same companies that are waiting for a BIM mandate will probably wait for a lean construction mandate, or a mandate to initiate off-site manufacturing, or smarter materials. But some companies, and the more dynamic ones, are really just getting on and implementing those parts of technology and digitization that work for their business without waiting for a mandate. And I was with a company last week, in fact, down here in Australia, and they said, we've realized the only way that we can really get ahead is to get started, because there's never a good time to start, because we never have enough time, money, or people.
I think that's really interesting, Paul.
I would like to just add.
Go ahead, Barry.
May I add something? For all your information, TESDA of the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority of the Philippines already pass the training regulations for BIM. So it's just a matter of cascading this down to all the regions. And hopefully, by this year, we can gather a lot of awareness on BIM. Also, one of the action plans of our roadmap is the government industry academe partnership. And we want to capitalize on this and invest on manpower and the curriculum also to change the curriculum through the professors. We just had a supposed memorandum of agreement between CMDF, the Construction Manpower Development Foundation, under CIAP, also with Bentley and PCA, to come up with the training program using Bentley this starting this February, because we're coming up with a bridge competition project or program, starting with the design, animation, and then also construction methodology, as well as build up of the actual bridge, no, using composite materials, using BIM. So I guess this is just the start, no, to create awareness to the students, because the students will be the one benefiting from this. Also the professors, because we will train the professors about this Bentley and then cascade it down to the students so that they can come up with their team to join the competition, bridge competition. And it's a threefold competition. One is design and animation, then the construction methodology, and then the actual build up, all within the premises of the field construction events which I manage. So this is how we do things, to create awareness and change all, because we found out that the curriculum is short of technology. Thank you.
Well, Barry, it really does sound like you've been working with different technology solutions providers to prepare the ground for BIM implementation.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jean, you mentioned that technology adoption is not happening fast enough. So, what's stopping companies and people from doing what Paul says, which is to get on and just do it?
I think the initial concern was, well, why change the way you're doing things if things were working? That was pre-pandemic, right? But of course, the pandemic changed it all. Suddenly, there were new constraints at the site. Like before, rework was, as Paul said, the cost-benefit analysis, when they would do based on their own, the cost of changing, right? The cost of change was just too much to accept, maybe both on a mindset level as well as in the practical level. But now, how the pandemic has turned everything upside down, right? So it's all now up for grabs. So I think it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's also still the capital investment, right? So that's why it's partnering with being, I've spoken, we'd speak to Autodesk and ask them, how can we partner and reduce the cost? Right, because this just gets passed on to everyone, to among the stakeholders. And also when it comes to the time of learning it and training it, and again, it helps if there is a champion, right? In any project, if there is a champion that pushes it, whether it's a developer and now, interestingly, the government. A lot of the government, there are some major infrastructure government projects now which require now BIM. So that really pushes everyone along the entire project life cycle to be able to incorporate it. No? And as when it comes to the talent, as Barry said, our founder, Dr. De Castro, he's been advocating across all stakeholders, government, lobbying for its acceptance, lobbying for the roadmap. Academe, we've also been working on including it in the curriculum. So I think in a couple of years, we'll be having the first graduates who are already able, right, to use BIM essentially natively as compared to the previous generations. So we're trying to attack things in different aspects to kind of address all these challenges or concerns that was previously stopping the industry from adopting BIM.
I think that's a really important point you make about the people side of it, that social side, because again, getting the benefits, implementing this process, it's not about having the technology. There's lots of software out there. There's robotics coming onto site. There are new ways of working. It really comes down to time and time again. It's a people issue. It's, you mentioned the attitudes of people and the willingness to try new things. That's crucial. And what we see is when you get people with that attitude, that you get a champion, as you mentioned, or you get a commitment in the business to want to change, and you set it up as like any change management process, it becomes more effective. But you have to get that buy-in. You have to go through a process of really educating and training and supporting those people to change their working practices. And I think in the technology industry, we sometimes focus too much on the clever stuff, on the technology, on all the very high-end capabilities that we can now offer in the industry. But if you don't get the people trained and supported and able to execute on that and use it, then you're not going to get the benefit from it.
Exactly.
So it does come back to the training every time.
And I'll just adding to Paul's comments as well. You know, it's really, how do we start the process? You know, not deferring it or delaying it, those sort of things. But you know, what are some of the steps in the process to, you know, start with maybe a specific area? Could be around quality, or it could be around safety, where we are recording data already around that, to, you know, getting buy-in with the senior management, you know, communicating to them the benefits of, you know, recording this information, and also engaging with the project teams, to then moving away across to how we're going to start to standardize some of these things, and pick up on the, you know, the differences that we're experiencing as we're moving forward within the projects and beyond, and then looking at ways we can start to keep that data in more of a, you know, common data environment, so we can really leverage off the benefit going forward. So, you know, there are steps in the process, you know, whether we talk about the, you know, a digital transformation, you know, starting off the journey, looking at things from an ad hoc nature, to being a bit opportunistic, and moving down, hopefully all the way through to be in a situation where we really get an idea. But we've got to, I guess, understand the capabilities within our organisation. So, you know, what's the career pathway look like for that person entering the organisation, all the way through to managing the organisation? What are the key workflows that we need to execute as a construction firm, and where do we sit in terms of our digital maturity? So we bring those three things together, we can start to plan out our businesses in the future.
That's really interesting, you know, all the points that you've brought up. And I think there are two main themes that we can catch over here. First is the industry ready to receive digital information? And second, are the people ready to support that implementation? And I'm going to follow on Sumit's point first, you know, on whether the industry is ready. So, you know, do you think that, you know, in this case, the Philippines government, are they ready to receive digital data? You know, how prepared is the government in terms of infrastructure to accommodate the need for digitalization? And that is a question from one of our audience today, Shashi Munindi. Thank you for asking the question. I'm going to direct this to our Filipino counterparts, Jean and Barry. I think you're the best to answer this question at the moment.
Well, I think we're forced to be ready. Otherwise, we will be left stagnating. Industry 4.0 is right in front of us, and we need to consider also design for manufacturing, especially in the construction business. No, what we really need actually are techno hubs, no, regional techno hubs, so that we can cater to the needs of our MSMEs. Because of the costly investments on this BIM technology and other robotics, etc., I think we are now planning with the government also, no, CIAP, together with USAID and others, to come up with the techno hub, so that we can cater to the needs of these MSMEs. We already created the awareness, but the next step is really to provide the means on how they can be trained. We also created awareness on the schools by training the professors. We are close to training the students by engaging in competitions. So we have ongoing supervisors training so that they can impart to all their workers the value of the right management of projects. And then we are also training on quantity surveying as well as FIDIC for the contracts. So everything is planned as part of our roadmap. I guess, as I've said, we are forced to digitize and adopt modern technology.
Yeah, just jumping from Barry's point, also the
Jane,
seeds
you
have
can
been
add.
planted, right? And as Filipinos, we are one of the most resilient, right? And we so easily adapt to any situation. And you know what? We just really need to work together. We've been doing BIM for almost close to a decade, right? So we already developed, we've gone through the mistakes, we've gone through the investment. We can simply partner with different stakeholders as well, right? We have the vendors here. We have, we can all just simply come together and be able to look at each other as partners to be able to work together, right? Do you have problems when it comes to talent? We can be your service outsourcing partner for you, right? Do you need to rent licenses? And we have our vendors here. So, I think it's to be able, we can't do it alone because we don't have enough resources, but all the talent, I believe, is here, right? It's already been planted. The academe is already catching up. The training centers are already there. Government is already encouraging it. Foreign consultants and experts are even coming here, and Filipino talent from around the world are also coming back to bring in their talent. So I feel that, it's not, just about being ready. It's really about coming together and just using what we're already actually doing. There are already several projects now, private projects that have already been done in BIM. 4 or 5 years from now. Now these are about to be constructed. They will be now ready to have a BIM as-built that will be open to facilities management, right? So it's a phase by phase, but it's already happening. I just don't want people thinking that there's nothing happening right now. It is happening. We just need to really be more, to embrace it more and really maximize its use.
I think also there's a huge amount of enthusiasm, I think, in the Philippines, in that engineering and construction industry to do things differently. I think some of that as well has come from those overseas projects where, as you said, people are coming back to the Philippines. They've seen best practice projects. They've seen some great examples of using technology. And there's that enthusiasm to want to do things better on Philippines projects. There really is. And I think, again, Barry was saying about the, I guess, the working with government, is government ready to start taking this content? Based on my experience from other countries, the answer to that is almost certainly no, but they never will be. They'll never be ready to accept all the great things that industry can give to them, because what I'm seeing is that governments, where this works well, governments have a role in creating the conditions and encouraging and incentivizing the industry, and that's everybody, designers, planners, fabricators, suppliers, to do things better and to come up with new ways of working and different ways of improving productivity and improving sustainability, and then handing over a digital asset or digital information. But that information is always evolving and changing. So as soon as a government is ready and it's done, again, governments or construction firms work slowly, government organizations work even slower. So by the time a government has decided what it wants and what format it wants, the industry will have moved on and be doing the next generation of things. So I think what I'm seeing, it's in industry globally, it works well when people start talking to each other and you foster that team environment, and projects start saying to government, what is it you want? What can we deliver for you that would help you operate those buildings better? And government at the same time can go to industry and say, look, we're thinking of this. Here's this kind of thing we think we'd like you to give us. What do you think? Is that practical? And just like with BIM, it's not a case of trying to do everything on every project. I think it's about picking those bits where the industry and government and clients can work together and agree, okay, on this project, this is how we'll operate that digital handover process. But again, the key thing is just to start doing some things on some projects.
Right. That is that's very true. I guess, Paul, you're speaking, from your observation of governments all around the world and how they are and always will be keeping up. with what the industry is doing. And I guess, from the government's point of view, there is a lot of benefits to to do this also, to advance the construction industry with technology, because it addresses the other point, that you've raised, and so has Jean, which is that it benefits the people. And, along with this, I would like to, bring up one of our audience comments from Luz Ramirez. Thank you for writing in with your comments. He's saying that digitalizing the construction industry will benefit all workers in the Philippines because, when their skills are improved, they can get better compensation and, it makes them more competitive. And when we build the people, we build the industry. And that is true, for many governments and for many people all around the world, it's always like that. But, the issue that's unique to the Philippines as well is that while there are a lot of talented engineers and architects and BIM professionals in the Philippines, a lot of your talent has gone to work in other countries around the world. So do you think, what do you think of this development and how does it help the Philippines construction industry?
Well, I think, if I may, I think it might actually attract more and more people to the region. As we were talking about earlier, there's no reason why Philippines can't become, that hub to increase attraction for investment, whether it's from, more and more, investors coming into the area and seeing the great opportunities that exist, but also, building the workforce of the future and, understanding what, skill sets might be to support a lot of the youngsters that are coming in that are going to be even more, digitally native as we move forward. They're picking up the tools a lot quicker. So it's going to be a very interesting space that we're in, and look at the way in which the government is applying its thinking to move through the pandemic and what investment is going to be put to the construction industry. It's going to fall in that. So it gives us a good opportunity not to, waste that opportunity and really invest in the people and find new ways in which we can deliver those projects effectively. So.
One of the issues, Prof, that we're quite apprehensive right now is that when we produce these talented engineers, technicians, or BIM managers, etc., other countries with higher pay, they go there. So we have to produce more technocrats, if I want to say that word, no? Because we are apprehensive that the Philippines, the salary is so low here. That's a given. But the salaries abroad, like Malaysia, Singapore, it's quite enormous. So all our talents go there. So I guess we don't have any other approach but to produce more, no? And enough resources in terms of talents locally.
So we, in our end, we approach things a bit differently. So there's something that we're passionate about. We've been doing engineering outsourcing for almost 2 decades now, right? So it's the idea of having Filipino talent be able to work on international projects, on global projects, while still being home, right? Being home in the country and being with their families. So the pandemic has essentially erased all question about whether you can work across borders, across geographies, even in the United States with the Great Resignation, with people moving to outer cities, and then the workforce really becoming very hybrid. I believe that now it's also very encouraging that this type of approach would also continue to allow, right, Filipino talent to be used either in local projects or even in international projects, right? It's a matter of combining, right, that opportunity, right? The talent is here, but the opportunity are both here and also elsewhere, right? So that we want Filipino talent to have access to that as well. That's why we're very passionate about elevating the Filipino talent to be world class. That's why we're passionate about BIM. We need to be able to compete at the global stage, at the international stage, because we want to be part of those projects as well.
That's interesting, Jean. And I want to catch on to, one thing that you mentioned earlier, which you said, to partner with technology solutions providers like Autodesk and Bentley to lower the cost of projects. Now, how can this be done?
I thought you were going to say lower the cost of licenses and then cost of big stir. Well, I think that would be something that I would be also very interested to know. I think at the beginning, we want to start talking more. Our goal for this year is to start developing more partnerships, right? How can we work together? We're such a small player. We've been a lone voice in the industry for so long, way back before BIM was even a buzzword here. And but it's really not us who will just benefit, right? We're a small consultant, but really being able to allow all partners, contractors, and vendors to really be part of the success of these projects. So I think partnership would definitely be very essential to that when it comes to really working together and have successful projects. But it has to be more than the bottom line. It has to be more than the bottom line. Unfortunately, I know we're all businesses. But if you're talking about sustainability, transparency, isn't that the goal of BIM as well? To avoid waste, avoid rework, that has to have additional value as well. It can't just always be the bottom line. So there also has to be a change in what is it that we want to do and how do we build back better, right? Because if things get destroyed, just like what happened in Typhoon Odette, then it's just another cost to rebuild everything again.
Jean,
I think the Department of Information, Communication, and Technology is quite aware that this is important, no? This digitization, and they're coming up with certain programs on creating tech hubs with some partners, foreign partners, and we are supporting this program of the government through TESDA, or CMDS. Now, earlier I said about the regional tech hub. This is the start of inculcating in regional levels the importance of training people, training on the use of technology, new technology, especially on BIM and other programs. So I don't know how service providers like you can help the government of the Philippines. We're open to discussing these ideas.
Now,
I guess
Paul
from
and
our,
Sumit,
yeah, and
I
I guess
invite
from our,
you.
yeah, I guess from our perspective, we're open to that conversation as well. Any partnership where we can work with the employers and the training institutes in particular, and understand what the pathways we need to build for the future of construction firms is something that we do believe we've got a role to work with you on. So we're open to it, and by all means, let's get together and discuss that.
Thank you.
Partnerships and engagement, that's key.
Yes.
Well, that's wonderful. So what a great conversation that we have there. And certainly, I think, we can look forward to more partnerships between technology solutions providers and businesses and government in the Philippines. Now, we are going to have to close off this discussion right now because we are approaching the end of our time for this session. So thank you, panelists, for the wonderful discussion that we have this afternoon. And to the audience listening in today, thank you for joining us. Thank you for writing in with your comments and your questions. And I wish you a good rest of the day. So please, everyone, stay safe and keep in touch. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Please.
It's safe.
Thank you, Ms. Vanessa and panelists for the insightful conversation. Now, before we end our session, we will appreciate your response on the feedback poll, which will be popping up on your screen right now. For all questions that went unanswered, please do let us know and we shall post them to the respective speakers who will reply via email. And with that, we conclude the first Buildtech Asia Roadshow Philippines. We hope today's session has been thought-provoking and meaningful. If you wish to know how you can learn and gain more insights, join us at Buildtech Asia this March 2022. Thank you and have a great day.